Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to cover off the installation of Windows 11 onto the Proxmox environment. Now the reason I'm doing this is twofold. One, I want to have a test lab for my Windows 11 installation because I'm going to be doing some future videos on Windows 11 functionality. And rather than completely mess around with my setup, I'll then have a test element within my Proxmox environment as a VM to do all that video work and testing. The second reason might be that you've never used Windows 11 before and you're keen to try out the functionality before upgrading maybe your Windows 10 environment. Now, I've been using Windows 11 for quite some time now on my personal device and I have no problems with it whatsoever. I actually find the functionality a lot better than Windows 10. However, there are some nuances around, some things that have changed and some features they've removed that may annoy some users, and I will cover them off at the end of this video. So the good news is that Proxmox 7 upwards supports Windows 11 perfectly. If you're using an older version of Proxmox, it is still possible. You'll just need to tweak around with some of your settings because it all contains around the TPM2 support, but we'll cover off that in the video as we go along. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to cover off this Windows 11 installation, and it is really straightforward. So a couple of things we need to make sure that we've got, first of all, is the latest Windows 11. Just makes life a bit easier, and I've got 22H2 there, and also this Virtualize Win drivers. Now, again, I'll point you to a link in the description for both of these. So once these are installed, all we need to do is right-click, create VM. We'll call it, let's just call it Win 11. We know what that's for. I'm going to leave advanced ticked for this purpose. We'll select the image we're going to use and we'll change this to Microsoft Windows, and you'll see it's already picked up 11/2022. Now if it doesn't and it picks up these, it might mean your Proxmox is not up to date and it might be worth doing that at this point. If we move on to system, I'm going to change the system to i440FX. Add my EFI storage as my local device. Make sure that TPM's ticked. You'll see it's already at 2. I'll again change that to local. So I'm just selecting the local disk and I will set that to the Virtual Scsi. Now it comes into here. I will make this a Virtual block and I will set this to 80 gig just to give myself a bit more. And then we can move on. Core wise, worth at least having 4, and memory wise, I would strongly suggest that you have around 8 gig. So we'll put that in. Now, when it comes to the network, I would strongly suggest at the very beginning, even if you've got a 10 gigabit network, to build it as E1000. Now, the reason for that is so that it picks up as part of the installation, because Windows 11 is highly reliant on the internet. However, if you're going to build a local one, you can select no internet and no network device and sort that out later. But for this point in time, that's what I'm going to do. And again, get to the end and click confirm, and that will build the VM. Now, what I'm going to do before we start that up is add a CD-ROM drive, pick my storage as local, and then again the Virt.io, and click add. Now we need that for some of the drivers as part of this installation. Now the key thing to note is here that it generally asks you to press any key as part of the boot up. So I always, as I start the VM, hover my finger over the enter key to be ready. So when it comes up, I just hit enter very quickly. Any key will do generally, but yeah, there we go. And this part takes a bit of time, so don't be too alarmed if it sits there for some time before the whirling circle appears. Okay, and there we are, and it's pulled in my information already, so it knows I'm in United Kingdom. Now I've done that by selecting those options as part of my download, which you can do. Click install now. I don't have a product key. Now, if you're going to use an OEM key, never type one in there. Just click I don't have one. You can do that later on, and we'll go for Windows 11 Pro. Yeah, we accept all of that, Microsoft, and then we're going to do a customize installation. When we first load in, you'll notice it can't find any drives. This is perfectly normal. What you need to do is go into load driver, click browse, go to the VirtWin CD. Right down the bottom here, you'll see a VIO store, not to be confused with VIO Scsi. It's very easily done. Go down to Windows 11, select AMD 64, and you'll see it's now find our VirtIO Scsi controller, and we can click next on that. That will install the drivers, which will enable our hard drive to be recognized. So once that's done, unallocated space, and it will start to copy Windows. And we'll just leave that to do its part. And it should be fairly quick, because to be honest, you know, you're talking to a virtualized device with, you know, fairly decent specs, so it shouldn't take too long. And I'm actually writing to an SSD, so. And we're now at the point we can restart, and we could just click restart now. Don't worry about too much on any of the little prompts that you get at the very top. That's perfectly normal. And what it will now do is load into the configuration part of Windows 11, which does look very different to Windows 10. Okay, this is a setup that you guys may be slightly used to, albeit it's now got that little bit of a Windows 11 vibe, or total Windows 11 vibe. So we'll select our country and region. Hopefully, again, it's pulled through my locality. And again, that keyboard layout. Do I want to add a second one? Not at all. Thank you very much. It will check for updates, and it will pull those through at this point. Now, it doesn't mean it will pull through all updates, but it's usually ones around the installation parts that are required. Now, it won't do this if you've set it to no network. And name your device. So let's give this a nice Win11VM, we'll call it. If you skip that for now, it will obviously give it one of those wonderful desktop names that would be completely random. And it will reboot. Now your option is almost likely going to be that one. Unless, of course, you are doing this for work purposes. It does give you this option to sign in. So I could use my Microsoft account. I think if you back out, it doesn't. Yeah, it's one of those annoying things now. The only way to get around making this local, I think, fully is to set your network. However, you might be able to select sign-in options. No, so I am going to have to use my bit. And I think the easiest way to make the local account here is to basically use the no network option. And you will get a prompt on your authenticator if you're going to use your Microsoft account, which I have. And that will log me in. So it depends how you want to do it. If you want to use your Microsoft account, select network. If you don't, select no network. And again, create a PIN, which I will do. Make it a nice simple one. And then you get all these wonderful questions. No, I don't want you to do that. Don't want you to do that because if I can't find you, I've got a problem. Required only. No. 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 And you can just skip all this as well. If you want to do that, you can do that. Oh, let's skip that. Okay, next. That's just going to enable my machine to back up to OneDrive, which might be quite useful if I'm wanting access to my OneDrive for my bit. So that's probably a good reason to use your Microsoft account if you want that ability to easily, well, one way of easily moving files, obviously with a remote desktop connection, you can just move them. And again, it will check for some more updates and then it should boot straight in. There's a few more steps we need to do as part of this process. Which is fine. So we're all logged in, ready to go. A couple of things we will need to do is one, to install those Vert.io drivers. So easiest way is to go into Device Manager. Let's see what's missing. We've certainly got a PCI device at the moment that's missing its driver. And what we'll do is we'll be a bit cheeky. We'll just do update driver and then we'll do close my computer and we'll click browse and we will find that Vert.io and just click OK and it should go away and find what it needs. And that's just a balloon driver for memory. So that's fine. Let's close that. And now we can see all of our drivers are installed, which is nice and useful. We can also then go into here and we will go into Vert.io and we want to install the guest agent. So we will install the 64-bit version. So a couple of things you'll note that are slightly different in Windows 11. That if you go onto here and right click, if you wanted to rename that, you couldn't. What Windows have done, or Microsoft has decided to do, is basically pull down this list to what they believe are the most commonly used ones. So all the other parts sit under here. Now, obviously, I can't rename this because it's a read only, but if I go into my local disk, for example, users, mine, and let's just say I find a picture. There's no pictures in there, but let's find is there anything that we can use? Or maybe let's just go into program files. We go into here, for example, and I wanted to rename that. I would have to go in and do it that way. And you can see there, I do get the option then to rename. But yeah, we're kind of good to go at this point. Now, if you want to activate a key, so you've got a key from somewhere else, because you'll notice if I go into settings at the moment, that my device won't be activated. So if I go into activation, for example, it says there isn't activated. Now, if I manage to get a key from somewhere, all I need to do is basically follow this guide, is do change product key, put that product key in there, click next, and it will do the rest for me. So that's fine. Anything like updates will work just the same. I'll get that running. The one thing I would say is to enable remote desktop settings. So if I go in here, so that's going to pull through some, is to enable remote desktop. So then you can RDP to it, makes life a lot easier. Enable remote desktop, and you'll see that Windows name is there. I can also obviously use the the IP address itself as well. And I said I'd show you how to fix that IP address issue, what I'm going to do is just wait for those updates to go on. So I'll just let those run in the background and then we'll pick that up. So as you can see at the moment, we've only got that running at 100. I don't want it to run at 100, I want it to run at 10 gig. So what we'll need to do is change some settings within the installation itself to do that, which we'll cover off any second now. Okay, so now we're at the point that all these updates are installed. What I'm going to do is change that setting for the network device. So if I go into here, I'm going to change that from the E100 to part virtualized. Now, what it will probably mean is first time I boot up, it may not work, depending on if it pulls a driver through, but we'll find out what happens. So what we'll do is go back into the console and we'll do a restart now. Now, bearing in mind, I have also, I think it's already, yeah, it's already lost it, which is fine, actually. We can probably fix that then while we're here. So let's have a look if we can fix that before we reboot. So, we want device manager, don't we? We'll see if we can address this before we reboot, which makes life a bit easier. And again, we can just cheat to do this. So click next, and hopefully it will go through and find what we want. There we go, installing drivers. So you now see it's got that virtualized driver. So without even rebooting, I've managed to change that. Now, if we look at the network settings now, we should be able to find it in there. We can now see 10 gig. So yeah, that's kind of done what we wanted. And we can just do a reboot at this point. And once we do a reboot, we are good. And it's going to take 6 minutes approximately. So that's mainly because it's got the cumulative updates in it. And that's the video primarily. Now you can obviously then just use RDP to connect. So if you use something like that, you could install some kind of other remoting in software, whatever you want, or even, I suppose, configure SSH if you wanted to do that. But yeah, that's Windows 11 in itself. All good to go. Hi and welcome back. So today we've covered off the installation of Windows 11 within Proxmox. We've also covered off some of the elements around Windows 11 that may have changed and may be slightly new to you. But basically now we've got a test lab on our virtual machine that we can play around with to our heart's content and do what we like with. So it doesn't matter if we break it, because we can either back it up and then just restore it, or we can take a snapshot at some point and then just restore that entity. So yeah, it's kind of there for your heart's content, really. So hopefully you've found this video informative. If you have, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and please feel free to go away and watch some of the other videos as well. See you next time.